For as long as I can remember, I have loved going to the movies. There is something so captivating and transformative about film. How a gifted screenwriter can turn incredible ideas into powerful words, summoning drama, humor, and conflict from the page like casting a spell. How an actor who knows their part better than they know themselves can breathe life into those words, creating a character who until that moment only existed on paper, and a performance with the potential to be remembered for generations to come. And how a director with vision and imagination can bind those rare, elemental creative forces, fashioning them into a gateway able to draw you into whole other worlds, holding fast to your senses until the closing credits roll, and sometimes, if the job is well done, for far longer. My name is M. Glenn Gore. I'll be your host each week as we explore in depth the newest releases both in the theater and at home. You're watching In Like Glenn, and today we're discussing Red Sparrow. The following video review contains spoilers for the film Red Sparrow. Proceed with caution. Let's talk about spy movies for a second. If you're watching this, it's safe to assume you've seen a few in your time, and can more than likely list a number of the tropes and trappings therein, even if you're unfamiliar with the bulk of the genre's entries. International travel to foreign lands, cool cars, slick gadgets, oftentimes in the same scenes, exotic femme fatales, stylish clothes, sinister villains of every stripe, and the insidious high-stakes plots to topple and destabilize governments they concoct. Sneaking in, breaking out, action abound, danger untold, narrow escapes, betrayal lurking around every corner, and in the thick of it all, one handsome man or woman pushed to the brink in their efforts to keep the world from falling. The espionage thriller's roots date as far back as the silent film era, but it was probably Fritz Lang's 1928 Spies that would best set the stage, establishing much of what was to come. The early works of famed auteur Alfred Hitchcock demonstrated an affection for the everyman, helplessly caught up in the devilish machinations of shadowy entities, such as 1934's The Man Who Knew Too Much, the tale of a couple on holiday who unwittingly stumble upon an assassination plot. 1935's The 39 Steps, a story involving a secret organization of spies, a massive manhunt, and an attempt to steal British military schematics. And my personal favorite, 1959's North by Northwest, the definitive mistaken identity yarn that follows Cary Grant's Roger Thornhill on a cross-country chase from New York City and the UN building to the very face of Mount Rushmore. The Cold War brought us The Manchurian Candidate, John Frankenheimer's fearful 1962 account of brainwashed American assassin Raymond Shaw, literally amidst the tense backdrop of the Cuban Missile Crisis, barely 2 weeks after Sean Connery would make cinematic history bringing Ian Fleming's James Bond to vivid, unforgettable life in 007's inaugural outing, Dr. No, giving rise to the era of the super spy. Still going strong after an astounding 24 films and 6 actors in the titular role, this franchise more than any other has garnered the world's imagination, influencing more offshoots than can readily be named, to say nothing of a number of notable parodies, which have all but become a genre unto themselves.
This never happened to the other fella.
Fred Zinnemann's Day of the Jackal, a polished 1973 venture featuring Edward Fox in the eponymous role, would come next, giving us a character that is equal parts master of disguise and professional assassin in the suspenseful political thriller. 2 years later, across the Atlantic, the burgeoning fear and paranoia of a government turned against itself and the American people during the Watergate scandal would bring us Sidney Pollack's prophetic 3 Days of the Condor, a classic conspiracy plot starring Robert Redford and Faye Dunaway that served as the primary inspiration for 2014's exceptional Captain America: The Winter Soldier. The evolution of the spy genre continues into the modern era with sharp entries from Tom Clancy's CIA agent Jack Ryan, who, like Bond, would see himself portrayed by a number of familiar and talented faces over his many exploits, each to varying degrees of success. Robert Ludlum's amnesiac super soldier Jason Bourne would follow, exploding onto the screen in one of the finest action trilogies ever filmed, and make Bloody Sunday's Paul Greengrass a household name. The increasingly ambitious Tom Cruise-led Mission Impossible franchise based on the successful mid-60s television series of the same name persists, having regained its footing due in large part to stylish course corrections from The Force Awakens' J.J. Abrams and The Incredibles' Brad Bird. So why the history lesson on the spy movie genre then, you ask? Because I want you all to know that when this review is over, you have plenty of options to turn to when you want to watch an awesome spy flick, because Red Sparrow is not a good movie.
Yes, it's horrible.
It is a drab, poorly paced, overly complicated, and nigh humorless affair that flirts with a self-indulgent 140-minute runtime dedicated to excruciatingly lifeless dialogue exchanges, interspersed with an unconscionable amount of sexual violence that utterly undermines any message of female agency or empowerment the film hazards to make.
Damn!
Helmed by Francis Lawrence, the mind behind Will Smith's 2007 near one-man show I Am Legend, and 50% of the 2 best Hunger Games films, and written by Justin Hathey of the cacophonous fiasco that was 2013's The Lone Ranger and the universally ignored 2017 psychological thriller A Cure for Wellness. Red Sparrow reunites Mother's Jennifer Lawrence with her Hunger Games director and tells the frequently difficult-to-stomach story of Dominika Igorova, a prima ballerina with the Bolshoi, who, following a career-ending injury, must save herself and her ailing mother from homelessness and starvation by becoming an unwilling recruit in the mysterious Sparrow School, a clandestine intelligence organization responsible for training gifted young men and women in the sultry art of seduction and manipulation, a sentence that makes me feel like I need a shower. Look, I'm just going to fly through these, alright? First of all, Jennifer Lawrence really feels like she's phoning it in with this one, even more so than she has been in the last fistful of lethargic X-Men outings. And that isn't an easy thing for me to say, because I'm an enormous fan of her work. She floored me in her haunting 2010 breakout Winter's Bone. I thought she really dove headfirst into 2012's brazen yet heartfelt Silver Linings Playbook. She and Christian Bale are the reason to see 2013's often hilarious American Hustle. And her immeasurable frustration in Darren Aronofsky's Mother was enough to make me want to leap into the screen to help her. But with her blank expression and her moose and squirrel accent, she just seems disinterested here, which is regrettable as the role seems very demanding. Truth be told, I don't even blame her. It's the script that falters most notably in Red Sparrow, but we'll address that in short order. There is an enormous problem with her character the film presents us with early on. That being, once she arrives at Sparrow School, a name the filmmaker spent all of minutes thinking up, I'm certain, we are informed that all of the other candidates studying alongside her have military training, years of expertise specifically in the areas of espionage and tradecraft, yet Lawrence's Dominika has only a background in ballet. And while ballet is certainly a talent and a skill possessed by few, it takes only 3 months at the school before she is somehow deemed the finest Sparrow the program has produced in its entire history. How exactly is anyone's guess.
You were the chosen one!
This is at best ridiculous. It is at worst unbelievable. How Dominika can be called a master after so short a time is absurd. This so-called training, by the way, is merely a series of invasive and debasing stunts designed to mortify and humiliate her, and I wish I could say this is the worst she would endure during this overlong ordeal. And it is overlong. Every minute of Red Sparrow feels like 3, with its first 2 acts clocking in at just under the length of a Godfather marathon.
It's been 84 years.
Its third act is admittedly something of a nail-biter, which is refreshing and feels more than earned when it finally arrives, but getting to it is a test of strength and resolve I was not at all up to. And I sat through Avatar. Twice.
Why?
And I'll be the one to say it, even at the risk of sounding like a dullard, this film is convoluted. I understood the words everyone used, yet the movie has a talent for making even the most attentive viewer feel dumb. And then it has the gall to literally applaud itself at its conclusion. It is so convinced, so overly assured of its own brilliance, but nothing can undo the fact that by the end, you're left with only a passing understanding of what's taken place.
What the hell am I looking at?
Joel Edgerton of the subversive 2015 sleeper hit The Gift and the sorely mismarketed 2017 post-apocalyptic not-quite horror film It Comes at Night stars opposite Lawrence as CIA agent Nate Nash. Nope, that's really his name. After losing contact with a Russian mole while on assignment in Moscow, Nash and Dominika's paths collide when her superiors dispatch her to seduce him in an attempt to learn the identity of his contact. Not to be outdone, Nash seeks to persuade Dominika into becoming a double agent for the United States, and that's basically the entire plot of the movie. Red Sparrow makes a valiant attempt at having us believe there's a love story between them here, but it's lukewarm to say the least, and never quite takes flight given that these are 2 people trained to lie with their every breath and deceive with every fiber of their being. So even if the intent was sincere, you exhaust yourself waiting for one or both of them to double-cross the other, effectively rendering the affair inert. Matthias Schoenaerts of 2012's Rust and Bone and the grim Oscar-nominated Bullhead puts in detestable work as Dominika's manipulative and borderline incestuous uncle, Ivan Igorov. He is a high-ranking official with Russian intelligence, and we later learn the man responsible for the accident that torpedoes Dominika's ballet aspirations. He's quite good here, actually, even if his motivations are never really made clear. Charlotte Rampling of the well-received 2015 drama 45 Years and... Oh lord, never mind. Rampling plays what is perhaps the most peculiar character in Red Sparrow, the waspish matron, who serves as the head instructor, or rather the only instructor at the Sparrow School. She is tasked with teaching the subtle, nuanced art of seduction, is responsible for lines of dialogue as unbelievably awful as this gem.
From this day forward, you will become sparrows, weapons in a global struggle for power.
And in truth, looks to have come straight from the same pool of archetypes that gave us From Russia with Love's ominous Rosa Klebb. Her performance, like the film itself, is creepy and uncomfortable, an itchy, slightly damp sweater you can't take off for 2 grueling hours. Jeremy Irons of 1990's fact-based attempted murder drama Reversal of Fortune, 2005's ambitious Kingdom of Heaven, and... oh god, Jesus, you too? Anyway, Irons is also in here, I imagine to cash a paycheck because his General Corknoy is rarely seen. Nor is Mary Louise Parker of the 2010 action comedy Red and the Showtime original series Weeds, who shows up just long enough to provide the film with one vaguely funny scene that feels wholly out of place against the overtly severe remainder. I should probably take a moment to address what the film does well before I get into the aspects that fail hardest. Red Sparrow is, first and foremost, a very good-looking film, with a number of beautiful locations both interior and exterior, each of which is made all the more vibrant when set against the wintry backdrop of Russia's expansive swaths of ice and snow. I must also give it credit for its use of trained ballerinas, specifically Isabella Boylston, who performed as Lawrence's dance double, and the deft execution of its few action sequences, which will remind viewers of the recent Charlize Theron-led Cold War jaunt Atomic Blonde. In particular, it gives us a pulse-pounding third-act knife fight that is staged for maximum realism. There is an impulse in action films to depict knife fights as nothing but a series of well-timed blocks, parries, and near misses.
Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
But they are much more likely to be sloppy affairs. There is no finesse here, no graceful Yuen Wu Ping styled choreography, only the vicious, animalistic throes of desperate souls vying to survive. And while we're on the subject, we really need to talk about the movie's most disgraceful misfire, its dangerously irresponsible fondness for the sexual violence it willfully inflicts on its female stars. At its somewhat rotten core, Red Sparrow is a film about female empowerment, albeit a misguided one. It chronicles how a woman is able to break the shackles of physical, sexual, financial, and psychological oppression forced upon her by the men she must abide in her life, be they her conniving, opportunistic uncle, her duplicitous ballet partner, her multiple rapists, both attempted and successful, and her lascivious company superiors. And though the violence is horrific, it is never gratuitous. It is only ever in service of the narrative, but you cannot contest that this comes at what is possibly one of the worst moments in recent history. Red Sparrow is political by its very nature, making it impossible to ignore the specter of the #MeToo movement that has all but taken root in our nation's discourse. It seeks to frame Lawrence's Dominica as unbreakable, capable of weathering any amount of abuse or assault, from unwanted advances and groping to rape and torture, going so far as to glorify the latter as a way of saying, pain makes you stronger, better. This is a thoughtless high wire to walk. When one of Dominica's classmates at the Sparrow School attempts to rape her, she injures him in self-defense, and must then answer to her superiors for harming him. Let me say that again in the clearest terms. She must be punished for hurting her rapist. Tell me this isn't what every woman goes through when they attempt to confront their attackers, when they seek justice for what's been done to them. In a stunning reversal in one of the film's few standout scenes, Dominica is at least able to emasculate her attacker, and in front of the entire class no less. But this only drives home the problem. We are only ever shown the physical consequences of what she goes through. The scars, the black eyes, the blood, but never the emotional. She seems immune to all she has been made to endure, and while that may very well be the message Red Sparrow wishes to leave us with, the implication that you can walk away from a sexual assault without it affecting you is a dangerous conceit. The age-old trope of women using their bodies to get what they want is precisely that. And the greatest shame here is that the filmmakers don't seem to realize that a woman using her body as a weapon does not equate to empowerment when she is forced to do so out of a desire to survive, to even exist. Red Sparrow wishes to place women on a pedestal, to say that they are strong, yet in doing so it is complicit in perpetuating the continued existence of rape culture by telling men you can do whatever you want to a woman because, see, she'll be fine. And this is thoroughly unacceptable, to say nothing of morally reprehensible. And for that, I'm giving Red Sparrow 2 stars. That's it for today's episode. As always, thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed the show, please like, share, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for more updates. Until next time, you were just in like Glenn.